Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Industrial Packaging Podcast with me, your host, Nathan Dube, Digital Marketing Specialist at Industrial Packaging. On today's episode, we are going to tackle the question, can you use a hairdryer to shrink plastic film? And while this might seem like a strange question at first glance, the truth is there's quite a few people looking for answers to this particular question. We've had over 600 people in this quarter alone come to our website reading a blog post about this very topic. So without further ado, let's get started on today's episode to answer the question, can you use a hairdryer to shrink plastic film? The short answer to this question is yes. Technically, the heat produced by most hairdryers can shrink plastic film, specifically polyvinyl chloride or polyolefin. Now, is it a good idea? That is a whole other can of worms. Here at Industrial Packaging, we have been helping people shrink plastic film for decades. During that time period, we have learned a lot about what you can and cannot do with shrink film when it comes to packaging your products. So, while you can technically use a hairdryer to shrink plastic film on your products, it's just not a very good idea or the proper tool for the job. Even when using a heat gun, which is the correct tool for small shrink film operations, consistency is hard to obtain. When you are using a hairdryer on top of looking a bit loony, you can expect even more problems with quality and consistency of shrink films. Problems such as constant tearing, poor shrink, and temperature issues are common. Never mind wasted time, materials, and money. 14 years ago, I actually used to refill inkjet cartridges for a local copier dealer. We had a desktop L-bar sealer and a heat gun, which looked a bit like a prop from Star Wars. Hence my pointing it at random objects and making laser sounds. Okay, right, back to the story. The heat gun had 3 settings, and none of them really helped to obtain consistency. I would say that 1 cartridge out of every 7 or so ended up with a tear due to too much heat applied to one spot. Anyways, the moral of the story is this. Yes, you can use a hairdryer to achieve even less impressive results than the heat gun from my ink cartridge days. And while that may work for a small volume of small products, it is not what I would call an overly professional approach. And so, my story begs the question, what is the best tool for shrinking plastic film? Well, my friends, the answer to that particular question is a shrink tunnel. Depending upon the volume of products you are shrinking film upon in conjunction with the size and shape of your products, chances are what you truly need is a shrink tunnel. Now, a shrink tunnel, also known as a heat tunnel, is a significantly larger device than your average hairdryer. They are a rectangular box-shaped machine that looks a bit like an oven. Generally speaking, conveyors are set up on each side of the heat tunnel and your products are moved into and then out of the heat tunnel. Inside the heat tunnel, warm or hot air shrinks shrink wrap around your product. Prior to entering the tunnel, other machinery places the product in a bag made of shrink wrap, which is then sealed on both sides prior to the product entering the heat tunnel. The sealed bag shrinks as it passes through the heat tunnel, and on the other side, the products continue to move through your packaging line, now looking all fancy and proper. Their new coats of shrink film glistening from the warehouse lights above. Now, a shrink tunnel may be a big investment for your company. Tabletop tunnels start at around $2,000. Entry-level shrink tunnels that go behind an L-sealer can be purchased for around $8,000. And for full-size production-level machines, those go for about $30,000 and up. A tabletop model might be a good cost-saving alternative to the heat gun for you in the long run. By saving on time reworking film that has holes or can't get a tight enough seal, the tunnel would provide a more consistent-looking package for your products. Over time, the total cost of ownership of a shrink tunnel may be less than your current process. It will also be significantly faster, more consistent, and produce better quality shrink. Granted, budgetary concerns may have you rolling your eyes about such an investment. However, leasing options and financing opportunities may give you the power needed to supercharge your business with a legit packaging department complete with a robust shrink tunnel. A local packaging expert can help you to review financial and leasing options. Okay, now we're going to review the various reasons on why you should not use a hairdryer to shrink your plastic wrap. There was a time when people would regularly use hairdryers to apply another kind of shrink film to their windows in an effort to prevent drafts in the winter. But that doesn't make them an appropriate tool for shrink wrapping products on your packaging line. For a very small operation, yes, you can technically get away with using a hairdryer for this purpose, but you will likely run into constant problems with tearing and inconsistent shrinking. Also, you definitely cannot use a hairdryer to shrink printed shrink film. It simply would not work and result in an absolute mess due to the inks in the film. If you are currently using a hairdryer to shrink wrap small products for your business, you really should consider upgrading to a heat gun. While similar to a hairdryer, a heat gun is a more professional tool that is actually designed for packaging. The tool you ideally want to use for shrink wrapping your products, though, is a heat tunnel. While this may be a big investment and requires significant capital to purchase, sooner or later you are going to want to consider upgrading to this level of professional equipment. If you are unsure where to start when looking to procure a quality heat gun or upgrade to a professional level of shrink machinery, it would be a good idea to contact a local packaging expert. Consider having them take a look at your current materials and processes for shrink wrapping your products. Ask them for advice on how to improve your packaging line. You may be able to save time, money, materials, and waste. There may be an opportunity to improve or optimize your current processes for shrink wrapping with some minor adjustments such as changing the gauge of your film. On the other hand, there could be rebates or other financial incentives to acquire professional-grade equipment and materials without having to make a purchase in one lump sum. In this case, you may have the opportunity to acquire professional-grade tools you previously thought may be out of reach. Either way, having a local packaging professional analyze your packaging line will, if nothing else, provide you with usable information to improve your business. Depending on the size of your operation, you might technically be able to get by with a hairdryer. That being said, you run the risk of ongoing quality issues from using a device that is not meant for the activity you are using it for. When all is said and done, yes, you can use a hairdryer to shrink certain types of shrink film, but it is definitely not recommended. And at the end of the day, using a hairdryer to shrink wrap your products is a bit like cleaning your floor with a toothbrush. It does the job, but not well or efficiently. If you are interested in learning more about shrink tunnels and other types of professional-grade packaging equipment, we invite you to read or download The Complete Guide to Buying Packaging Machinery, which you can find at our Learning Center on industrialpackaging.com. This free guide is packed to the brim with all the information you need to start formulating a vision for a professional-grade packaging line with a proper shrink film equipment. And that's a wrap, folks. We have reached the end of yet another episode of the Industrial Packaging Podcast with me, your host, Nathan Dube, Digital Marketing Specialist at Industrial Packaging. That being said, I do hope you will tune in for the next episode where we will cover troubleshooting shrink wrap and equipment. But until then, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.